And welcome back to the Jamie Ross Show. I am here in studio with Alan Paul.
Hello.
And you can see Alan's book, Big in China. And this came out when? This
Came out March 1st,
March 1st.
2011.
And you had a huge turnout at Words Bookstore, probably the biggest they've ever had there.
Right.
That's when that's like.
That was on March 4th. So it was
March
a couple
4th.
of days after.
Okay.
I had a book release party in Tribeca on March 1st
Okay.
at Barnes & Noble, and then in March 4th here at Words in Maplewood, because Maplewood's my home, so I
Right.
wanted to do something here to market. And I was
Absolutely.
very gratified to see such a good turnout.
Mm-hmm. And you sold out. Have they restocked the shelves yet?
They have restocked the shelves, and I hope it's continued to be restocked. I need to pop back in and make sure, but yes.
Absolutely. So when were you in China?
We were in China from August 2005 until basically January 1st, 2009.
2009.
Very end of December 2008.
Okay. And you went there because your wife.
We went there because my wife, who was an editor at the Wall Street Journal, was appointed the Wall Street Journal China bureau chief based in
Okay.
Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounded like a great opportunity, so I kind of took a flyer and didn't
Yeah.
know what I'd be doing there and headed over.
Nice. Quite an adventure. Did you ever think you'd end up in China? Had you ever?
No, no. After living in China, of course, I had met so many friends there
Mhm.
who were very China-centric their whole lives.
Oh, yeah.
People who'd studied Chinese history or language in college,
Right.
who had always dreamed of going to China, who had worked their whole lives towards going to China.
Uh-huh, right.
We were not like that.
No, yeah.
I mean, I always
yeah.
had an interest in China. I had an interest in Asia,
Mhm.
but I had never been there. I didn't have to anywhere in Asia. Didn't have any real prospects of getting there anytime soon with
Right.
3 young kids. I didn't think so. I mean, I was very intrigued by China, but it's not
Mhm.
something I had spent years thinking about going.
And also, I mean, that must have been the other big deciding factor. 3 kids.
Right.
And, you know.
Right. Well, from this side of it, when we were contemplating
Mm-hmm.
whether to move from Maplewood to China, and at the time when we first started talking about it, our kids were about 20 months, 4.5 and 7,
Right.
or almost 7. And so the kids were really quite young, and it was still very physical,
Right.
day, moment to moment,
Mhm.
being involved with the raising 3 young kids. It seemed like kind of a wild and reckless thing to do almost. But when we got over
Right.
there, once we made the decision and we got there, and we were living in this expat housing compound, I met so many people with young kids. It no longer seemed like such an exotic thing to
Right.
do.
And did a lot of your friends and family kind of say, you think this is?
Well,
or
that
was that not as tough to break away from?
Well, it was an interesting situation. Once we decided to move to China, and even before when we were
Mhm.
contemplating moving to China,
Right.
and I would discuss it with people, it was sort of like a Rorschach test. You
Yeah.
could tell a lot about people's view of the world by how
Right.
they responded.
Interesting.
Yeah, some people would just say, "Wow, that's incredible! That's fantastic!
Yeah.
That's
Great opportunity."
great opportunity."
Yeah.
And some people would say, "Do you have to go? Is she going to lose her job if you don't go?
Yeah.
Why would you do that? That's crazy."
Yeah.
And so it was interesting, but it was all over.
Mhm.
Both of our immediate families were actually quite supportive, which
Right.
made it easier for us to decide.
Right. And I also did read in your book, and it seemed like your oldest had no issue with it. So kind of like
Right.
when he kind of had the nod, the others would follow.
That's
how you
right.
put
Well,
it.
we decided when we went over for what they call a look-see visit to
Uh-huh.
decide. The job was moving along. It basically became clear that if Rebecca said yes, the job was hers.
Right.
So before we made the final decision, we wanted to go over and visit.
Mhm.
So we did that. Basically, after a couple of days, decided that we really liked it there and we were going to do this. So we spent several days taking pictures of things that we thought would appeal to the kids.
Mhm.
And we talked about how do we present this to the
Oh, I
kids.
see.
We really hadn't
Yeah.
discussed it with them
Yeah.
because we thought it didn't make sense to introduce doubt. And we weren't going to discuss with them until we had made a decision that
Mhm.
we were going to
Mhm.
move. So we spent some time going to things that we thought would be appealing to the kids and taking
Right.
pictures.
I see.
And with very much
Very
with the
smart.
target of selling it to Jacob, our eldest, who was
Mhm.
7 at the time. And one of the places we went on the recommendation of a friend who was there, who also worked at the Wall Street Journal and had kids about our kids' age, was there's a place called Fundazzle, which is a
Okay.
great name, I thought. It's like a huge kids play area that has a ball pit that's probably the biggest ball pit in the world.
Wow.
And we took a lot of pictures of that ball pit, and that was the thing that sold
Nice.
Jacob
Yeah, yeah,
immediately. Yeah, it's
yeah.
really. We showed him the picture, and he said,
I'd
"I
like
want to go to
meet
China,"
yeah, yeah.
and that was it basically.
Okay, and it was also helpful for you too, because were you doing freelance writing or more of a full time?
Before I left,
Yeah.
I was freelance, but on contract for two magazines, Guitar
Uh-huh.
World and Slam, the basketball
Slam.
magazine. So
Yeah.
I had a combination of different gigs and different sort of freelance lifestyle with a steady contract. So it was a nice setup, but
Yeah.
I've been doing it for quite a while, and I thought it was time to maybe shake things up a little bit.
So basketball and guitar, those
Yeah.
two seem.
I know. Well,
But you know,
as a career, they're pretty
Yeah.
divergent.
yeah.
But as interests in my life and my friends,
Yeah.
these are the things we always liked were sports and music.
That's
And I
great.
sit around with the same friends and talk about
Uh-huh.
bands and our favorite teams. So
Okay.
it didn't really seem unusual to me, but it certainly is unusual as a career. It just kind of happened.
Right.
I'm kind of broad.
Absolutely.
I like a little bit of everything.
So then, all right. So here we are in China. Okay, let's figure out what is the music scene like in China.
Well, the music scene is it's a mix of a lot of things.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
First of all, the first surprising thing to a lot of people, probably including me to some extent when I first got there, was that it existed.
Right.
There was somebody I was introduced to on our look-see visit who was a friend of someone at the Wall Street Journal who was a guitar player, a
Okay.
Chinese-American guitarist who was interested in meeting me because of my Guitar World connection.
Mhm.
He had played in a lot of bands, and so he filled me in a bit on that look-see visit. So I
Okay.
knew going in that there was a pretty active scene.
Okay.
It's a bit diffuse. It's all over the place. There's a lot of punk bands and metal bands. There's a lot of jazz. There's a lot of modern rock.
Okay.
There's more and more hip hop. Some of the European DJs come over and do really well there performing. So there's a lot of clubs, a lot of music happening.
Okay.
It's still, especially outside of Beijing, the music is still exciting. It had a little bit of an edge and a little bit more excitement and freshness to a performance.
Okay. And how about blues? Was blues
Blues wasn't so much on the radar. I mean,
Uh-huh.
it existed a bit. I mean, the way my band began was that I met a young guitarist named Woody Wu who owned a
Right.
guitar repair shop when I had a broken guitar, basically, and I was looking for someone to fix it. And when I went and met Woody, he's 12 years younger than me. I had just turned 40 at the time. Woody was 28. He had long hair in his
Yeah.
face, about 5 earrings in each ear, a big nose ring, covered in tattoos. I thought from the way he looked and from his age that probably was like a metal guy.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Then he took off his jacket and I saw something familiar on his left arm. And I got a good look at it finally. I just said, "Hey, what is that?" And it was a
Right.
big picture, like that big, of Stevie Ray Vaughan's
Stevie
face
Ray.
and the
Yeah.
letters SRV. And
Huh.
I was just shocked. I'm a blues fan and lover and
Right.
player, so
Right.
changed the whole tenor of what we were talking about.
Mm.
But Woody was sort of an outlier. It's not like there's tons of Chinese guys running around with Stevie Ray Vaughan tattoos.
I was gonna say, yeah. And also you don't picture tattoos
Right.
even being that
That's right.
popular.
Well, as it is here, it's more popular with younger people, but
Mhm.
it certainly doesn't have. I mean, because I was playing with Woody and with these bands, with the band, we played around in a lot of clubs and met the musicians' friends, and quite a few of those guys would pop up with tattoos.
Right, I see.
But in the
Yeah.
general population, the percentage of people who have tattoos is, it's very low. It's
Well,
a very small percentage.
Well, less than here.
It's definitely less than here,
Yeah.
but again, it's similar to here in the sense that there's, the younger
Mhm.
the population and the more urban,
Right.
probably the higher percentage of tattoos. But
Right. Right.
it did stand out with Woody. At the time I met him, I don't think I had met any. I know I hadn't met anyone else like him, so
Okay.
it did stand out.
So and the name of your band was Woody Allen.
Woody Allen. What else? You know, he's Woody. I'm Allen.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time before the first time we played trying to think of a name,
Uh-huh.
and I was trying to think of something really clever. So I was writing
Yeah.
a list of some of my favorite blues songs and performers, and
Right.
some Bob Dylan songs that we would perform, and our names. And I was just trying to play around and come up with something that sounded cool and not cheesy. And then
Yeah.
there it was.
There
know,
it was,
Woody
right
Allen.
in front of
How
you.
could I not use that?
Absolutely.
So it was sort of a joke, really. The title of my book, Big in China, was also a joke
Uh-huh.
to myself as I was working on a proposal.
I
I
see.
thought I would change it,
Yeah.
but everyone liked it. My editors liked it. So in both cases, I think my initial humorous impulse was right, and my self-censorship was wrong.
Uh-huh,
Other
yeah.
people came to my rescue there.
Gotcha. So were you big? Were you big in China?
Well, yeah, we're big in China. I mean, we left, and it's part of the sort of melancholy feel towards the end of the book is
Right.
our departure was hastened a little bit by the Wall Street Journal really wanting to bring Becky back. Her opportunity got us there, and it brought us back basically. So I don't think we never really found out just how big we might have been able to
I
get.
see.
We were on our way up very
Uh-huh.
much when it ended. But we toured throughout China. We played we played in festivals in front of 5,000 or 6,000 people.
Yeah,
We were filmed by multi-camera crews. We were on TV in Fujian province, which is the state
Yeah.
TV, which is
Yeah,
home
yeah.
to about 44 million people.
Wow.
We were on a bunch of radio shows. We had a
Mhm.
lot of press, and when we traveled, we got a lot of. We were in newspapers and magazines.
Right.
So I think we were pretty big. We
Yeah,
were,
yeah,
we were
yeah.
bigger than
No,
I
it's-
ever anticipated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what was your wife's reaction and your family's reaction to this
To the
this
band.
venture?
Well,
The band.
my wife, at the beginning thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We had these social gatherings. We played these gigs and invite everyone I know and come
Right.
together. She was happy to meet Woody and the other guys in the band. Then we went through a stage where she was probably thinking, okay, enough of this.
Right.
You're just kind of
Yeah.
using this as an excuse to go out and party with the boys.
Yeah.
And then at some point we went through different phases with the bass and drums of the band for the first few months, and then we brought in this guy Zhang Yang, a bass player. Then we brought in this drummer Lu Wei, both of whom are Chinese guys that Woody knew and brought in. And once those guys joined the band, it became much better, really, and we
Okay.
became more dedicated to rehearsing and becoming more like a real band.
Gotcha.
And that led to me writing original material.
Mhm.
Eventually, I wanted to introduce a Chinese element, and so I brought it up with the guys. And it turned out Zhang Yang, who was playing bass and never opened his mouth, was a
Uh-huh.
great singer
Huh.
who was a great and songwriter who had these Chinese songs. So he started singing Chinese songs. So all of this started happening, and at that point we started rehearsing more, playing more. It became more time consuming and more of a real factor in my life.
Right.
So that was the point where a lot of people think my wife would have gotten kind of annoyed.
Right.
But actually it's not, because at that point it became clear that it wasn't just me goofing around
Right,
and going
right.
out as an excuse to get drunk or something.
Gotcha.
Became much more serious, and it was the cross-cultural element of it was unique, and was a part of really what helped us be successful both to Western audiences there and to
Right.
Chinese, and it was also appealing to my wife and kids, and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
began to spend more time with the other band members and with their wives and girlfriends and cousins and friends, and so it gave me, and to some extent my whole family, entree into Chinese life that was deeper and more organic than anything else
which
would
got
have.
you out of the compound.
Right. Well,
The-
we had already made an effort to get out of the
right,
compound from the
which-
start,
okay,
which
yeah.
is how I met Woody and all this,
Right,
you know.
yeah.
But it did get us deeper and deeper
Right.
out.
Right.
Getting out of the compound wasn't that hard. It just took a little bit of effort. But from there to really penetrate into life and your friends' lives rather than just
Right.
being an observer on the outside was still kind of tricky.
Right. And you mentioned film crews a little while ago, and you just got your movie rights,
Right.
or picked up by Ivan Reitman.
That's right.
Which is huge.
Yeah, it's very
I mean,
exciting.
That's big. Ivan Reitman, for those who don't know, he did what? He did Ghostbusters.
He did the holy trinity of my childhood, which is
Yeah.
Ghostbusters, Stripes, and Meatballs.
Stripes and Meatballs.
Now, I'm not sure how much those movies have to do with Big in China, but they are landmark movies in their own right.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
I was very flattered, of course, that there was interest in Hollywood in my story, and I went out there right after the book came out, and I met with a bunch of people, and there was interest from several people, but
Right.
I really enjoyed meeting Ivan Reitman.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from his credits, I related to him. I found him to be an easy guy to talk to.
That's great.
He seemed to share the same sort of level of interest, and he was attracted to the parts of my story that I thought were most interesting,
Oh,
which
great.
wasn't necessarily the case with everyone.
Yeah.
So I feel really good about it. Hopefully, it'll keep moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's basically in his hands, and you know,
Right, we're finalizing the contract, but it is happening, and
Yeah.
it's an option. So sometimes books get optioned and sit on the shelf, but this is actually moving forward, looking to hire a writer, a screenwriter who I would be working with, sort of as a consultant, and
Right.
so it's moving forward, and fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
And I just started the book, so I'm really into it. It's a fun read, and I can't wait to read more of it. Here it is once again, Big in
Big in
China. Alan Paul at the Jamie Ross Show. Finally,
Yeah, nice
I-
to be here.
this is where you know you made it.
Right, that's
Right.
right. I made,
But
yeah,
but-
Ivan Reitman comes and goes, but the Jamie
Yeah,
Ross show is
right.
for real.
if Ivan's ever in town, he can come
All
on
right,
the show
we'll work on
too.
that.
All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you very much.
And get the book. It's going to be at Words. He'll make sure it's restocked. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you online soon.